Hey everybody! Hopefully I have this all set up correctly. Oh, let's see. So we are still stitching today. So if you're joining us, I am working on a Kiriki press sampler, and I happen to be doing the Halloween sampler with the adorable pumpkin. And last time we did the split stitch, the arrowhead stitch, and the buttonhole heart, which I had issues doing upside down and backwards. I don't recommend that. And then I went ahead and, let me see, and I did the split stitch for my padded satin stitch, but I still need to put my end in on the back. Or, you know, take that forward and start using that to work my satin stitch. So anyway, I did get my split stitch done. I actually did some of this with Ina on my lap while she was watching a movie. So I feel like that was sort of an achievement on both of our parts. Hey, Kathy. Yeah, sort of an achievement because, you know, she let me stitch and I managed to do it. So not my finest split stitch because, again, I did do part of this with her on my lap, but it's done, and it gets hidden by the satin stitch anyway, so I don't feel too badly that it's not my finest split stitch. So, anyway, we've already done 3 of our stitches, and we're going to look at 4 of our stitches today. But before we do that, let's see, what do I need to tell you all? Thank you to everybody who participated in the slow yarn crawl and hung in with us here at Black Sheep during slow crawl. We are going to be pulling prizes very soon and posting those to the website. And as always, we like to protect everybody's personal information as much as possible, so we will only list you by first name, last initial if you happen to be one of the winners. If you win, we do email you. If we don't hear from you by email after a few days, then usually we do call you, because all of our slow crawl finishers, as we think of them, do earn a prize. So if you finish the slow crawl, if you manage to go to all 35 shops, or you shopped at all 35 shops, then you get an extra slow crawl prize just for participating, because we think you deserve that, because it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of effort. I know you have 3 months, but it takes a lot of effort. So, that all is coming up. We got some new stuff in. Tina and I have been talking, and we really want to order some fun new tatting threads and sashiko kits and a couple of other things from Japan. So I think we may try to do that in the next few weeks to try to get that in before Christmas, because, oh my god, yeah, Christmas is coming up. I've been sewing because that's one of the things Ina lets me do, as we've discussed. So I made her a really cute little koi fish shirt and long sleeves because I'm thinking about fall, and I'm so ready for fall. And I have so many pumpkins! I have so many pumpkins! I think I have 10 pumpkins sitting on my kitchen table, and I'm pretty sure that I have 10 pumpkins on my front porch. So, I really need to give away some pumpkins here locally because I have way too many. I clearly love fall and I love pumpkins, so I grow a lot of them. And, of course, I chose Halloween and the pumpkins for my embroidery sampler as well. So what can I say? I like fall. I'm a little pumpkin crazy, but I actually do not like the pumpkin spice latte. I think pumpkin spice is highly overrated. I love a good pumpkin pie, don't get me wrong. I do. I would rather have a pumpkin pie than cake for my birthday. But I think pumpkin spice is overrated. I much prefer apple cider. I love apple cider, especially hard apple cider, but I'll take regular apple cider too. Anyway, so that's kind of what's going on. Is we're thinking about Christmas, we're thinking about bringing the new stock in, so don't forget that we do still have a lot of skeins that are on clearance, and we put some books and things there too, because it's just time to move that stuff out so we have space. We are going to be doing a big clearance event. We're going to have like a happy fall y'all September clearance kind of thing. And I don't know exactly when it's going to start, but very soon, very soon. Tina and I are talking about it. It's going to start very soon, sometime probably this week. We're going to do a fall clearance event, and we're going to have like 20% off most of the shop and 30% off this section of the shop and 40% off all of our fleece because we need to make room, and the fleece takes up the most room. So we need to make room so we can bring in all of that fun stuff from Japan. So, okay, now that we've had that little discussion, don't forget Tina's usually on Fridays, and she's talking about her her knit along and crochet along with her t-shirts, and I'm of course here doing the embroidery. So today we're going to focus on fly stitch, long and short stitch, whipped back stitch, and the padded satin stitch. And I'm actually going to start with the padded satin stitch because I have my hoop already set up to show you that, and then we'll go do the whipped back stitch, and then I'll probably do fly stitch before we discuss long and short stitch, because the long and short stitch actually takes the most time. It's the most time consuming, even though it's a very simple process, and it's not hard. It takes time because you're trying to blend colors, and it just takes time. So anyway, that's the last one that we'll look at today. So if you haven't already, go ahead and grab your embroidery items. And of course for me, I have my tablet, and hopefully you can see I've got my Halloween, you can sort of see it there, my Halloween PDF pulled up so that we can talk about the stitches. So today we're going to finish out the stitches that we didn't talk about last time, and then Wednesday, actually we'll probably talk about embroidery again on Wednesday, just in case anybody has any questions. I'll probably do a stitch and chat where I work a little bit and we talk about some of the techniques and how it gets put together. And then next week we need something else to do. So next week we're probably going to do tatting again. I'm kind of getting back into the tatting. Ina is letting me do a little bit of tatting, not a lot, but a little bit of tatting. So we'll look at that again, and I am still working on my knitted shawl, and eventually I'm going to block it live with all of you. So, you know, I haven't forgotten about that. We are doing lace. It is kind of, I'm a lace lover, so it's a fall full of lace. But first we're going to start off with just a little dab of embroidery because I like to stitch too. So I'm going to go ahead and shift the camera. And if you're lucky, you'll spot Charlie back there behind the grill. He likes to nap back there. And we need our items. Okay, so if you have not already made your hoop drum tight, that's the first thing that we need to do, is make that hoop drum tight. And you may hear a couple of Canada geese. They happen to be flying over right now. So let's see. I think I have this tight enough. Yep, feels pretty good. That's always my test. I listen to it and I feel it to see if it's tight but not too tight, because you want just a little bit of give in your fabric, but you don't want it to be floppy. So here we are. This is what we're going to focus on first. This is the padded satin stitch. So you outline and you pad your area to be filled with your split stitch. And we learned the split stitch last time. And I took my split stitch and I started vaguely over here, and I worked the outline and then sort of spiraled my way in. And you can see I have some gaps here where I should probably have tightened up my split stitch, and I should have curved it a little bit better as I was going. So there are definitely some things that I could improve on my split stitch. But I kind of looked at it and I went, you know, I'm going to cover this with satin stitch anyway. So I'm just not going to worry about that too much. And if you are following along with your PDF from Kiriki Press, that padded satin stitch is on page, I think it's page 4. Let me check. 1, 2, 3, yep, 4. Is on page 4 at the bottom. And yeah, I probably should have padded this a little bit better, but we're just going to go with it because that's what I have done. So you only use one strand of floss, if you recall, when you're doing the split stitch, and that's what you also use for your padding for your satin stitch. So this is a single strand of floss. You can see here was my away knot. It's just hanging out over here until I clip it. Sometimes I clip them as I go and put the tails in. Sometimes I wait until later. It's totally your choice. I did accidentally catch a little bit of, I didn't even notice that this was happening, so I'll just trim this down. I did catch a little bit of like the edge, one of the strands of yarn from my fabric actually came out, and I caught it in here, and I didn't realize that that was happening while I was split stitching. So do keep an eye on that. That's an important thing to note. Keep an eye on that. As you go to fill this in, once you use the split stitch to fill in the outline of your piece, when you go to satin stitch this, you are again going to be using one strand, and it's probably a little bit hard to see, but you can see a little bit of it. You can see sort of the weaving of my fabric. You can see it's a nice woven fabric. We have our weft, we have our warp, so the weft goes up and down and the warp goes back and forth. And as we stitch, the goal is that if you are coming in on like this strand, that you follow it all the way down and you come out on that strand, so that as you pad your stitch, as you work the satin stitch over it, that you are as straight as possible. And see, I wasn't even straight there, I was one strand over. And that is the trouble with satin stitch. It's super easy to do, but it's really hard to make it look good, because you're constantly fighting to make sure that you are keeping your strands as straight as possible, and laying them right next to each other as you go along. And you don't want them to be too tight, because you do want them to fill a little bit, but you don't want them to be too loose. So there's just a lot of little pieces to doing that satin stitch. Oh look, and then I have a little bit of fuzz. Bye bye fuzz. Bye bye fuzz. There we go. So satin stitch is gorgeous, and yet my nemesis. I have so much trouble making pretty satin stitch. Everybody does, or almost everyone does. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get started with the thread that I already have back here, because I can do a few strands just to show you sort of how to get started, and then I'm going to abandon this so that we can look at another stitch. So remember, again, you always bring your needle to your thread, not your thread to your needle, because that makes it go faster when you're trying to put it on. And I want to start way out here at the very, very edge. And the goal of this is to get as close to the outline as possible to make your very first satin stitch bar, and to follow the warp of the fabric, because we're going with the warp right now, so that it's as in line as possible. And I'm just going over one, and yes, there is a smoother, prettier way to do this, but I'm just doing the cheater way, which is carefully, one strand at a time, while I have you all on video. Very carefully trying to lay them in exactly one next to the other. Very carefully. And this is, again, this is my nemesis. I am not the best at this. And then go down, up and over. It also doesn't help that I am in very bright light outside. I could probably use some more indirect light to do this properly. Okay, up and over. One strand. Okay, it doesn't look terrible. You can see I'm laying it in as straight and as close together as possible. Trying to make sure that I am only going one strand over every time, and sometimes I am sort of poking my needle in multiple times to find the hole. But I'm running out of thread and I need to leave enough to weave in. So that's the idea right there for satin stitch. Very carefully, and see I probably put that one in the wrong hole right here, this very last stitch that I made. Let's see if I can take it out. Bet I can't. Let's find out. Oh, I got it. That one went in the wrong hole, and it should be one strand over. There we go. That looks better. So just very, very carefully, you're going one strand at a time across your fabric, and you're trying to very, very carefully lay in your satin stitch so that as you fill this, it looks nice and smooth. And I don't know if you can see her illustration, but nice and smooth right here, this padded satin stitch oval. And so each strand should just lay in right next to each other all the way across. That's the idea of satin stitch. It's hard to achieve. And I'm going to go ahead and just weave in my tail here really fast. So since I have to start a new strand, and this might happen to you, when I'm doing satin stitch especially, I just weave it under my satin stitch, and then I might come back a single strand, just like this. Now it's probably pretty well secured at this point, but because I have these nice little split stitch backs down here, I'm going to go ahead and run it through a couple of those. And then because I don't want to get caught in my tail, I do try to trim my tails every time that I finish a strand, because these can cause problems later on if you aren't being careful, just like this little edge piece did that came off and got caught in my work. So you want to make sure that you're trimming your tails so that they don't get caught and pop to the front of your work, so you know you don't have a little bit of orange that's showing in a green leaf or something like that. So you always want to cut and trim your tails. That's also part of why I've gone ahead and I've left my waist knots and my tails in for now, just so I can see where they are. I don't want them hanging out loose. So I could go ahead and trim that and put my tail in if I wanted to. But I'm going to wait and do that when I have all of my sampler stitches done. Alright, so that's the idea right there for padded satin stitch. And now we need to keep moving forward. So I'm going to go back to my little packet here. And let's see. I have lots of lovely colors, and I think, what color was that? That was the darker green. I'm going to use the lighter green. I've got a plane. Fun. I'm just going to go ahead and grab my lighter green here, and then just go ahead and close this back up. And I want to check my whipped back stitch. So the whipped back stitch, you start and you back stitch along, and then you come back through and you whip it, or you run your thread in a particular direction through all of your stitches, just sort of the center of all of your stitches, so that it wraps around and it gives it sort of a curlicue appearance. So whipped back stitch is really pretty. It works really nicely for outlining, and it works really nicely for I think lettering. I think lettering looks nice in whipped back stitch. But this is a great way to add a little bit of texture and interest without it being a really difficult stitch. Let's see, so I am going to do a 2-strand because this is for practice. I have a feeling that on the actual, on the vines, that's what you're going to use this on, the vines. You will actually use 1 strand But I'm going to use 2 strands just for demonstration purposes. I should still have plenty of floss left. So just tuck that away. And remember, when we do 2 strands, that we go ahead and we pull each one out individually. And then I always like to sort of smooth them together. And I like to run them over a bit of beeswax. Although I do need to find I've ordered some thread magic to try, which is similar to the old Thread Heaven. And then sometimes, yeah, those are a little bit fluffy. I'm going to trim those. Whoops, don't do that. So I'm just going to trim those ends to make it a little bit easier. If your ends are too fluffy, it's really, really hard to thread your needle. See there, it's still a little too fluffy. And it's going to act up. Come on. Got 1 strand through, of course. Alright, smooth it out. Smooth it out, smooth it out. Come on, you fluffy little thing. Oh, too fluffy. Too fluffy. Try again. There. That is what I usually do, by the way, is if it's too fluffy, I just trim it and try again. Trim it and try again. And I may need to put a little extra beeswax. Sometimes putting a little more beeswax on these tips also helps. I know a lot of old-time stitchers would actually use their spit, but I really try not to do that because it's kind of gross. And there's a lot of things that people do that are kind of gross. So we're going to go back to the beeswax, not spit, and bring the needle to the thread and not the thread to the needle. Come on. Ugh, and I split. See how I've split this one again? It's one thing. That thread is not happy. See if I can just ease that 1 strand through. Oh, I think I've done it. There we go. Sometimes you can sneak by and do that. Alright, so again, I'm going to use a waist knot, just because it's easy while I'm on the camera with you guys. And since A is here, we'll throw the waist knot down here, kind of out of the way. Okay, so we're going to come up at A and down at B and up at C and down at D. And A and D are the same stitch. I'm trying to go in the same hole here. Up at E. And yes, there is a way to minimize your needle movements with this. No, I'm not doing it because I'm just demonstrating real fast on the camera. And down at H. All right. So here's our back stitch. Very easy back stitch. And then using a different color of floss, it says come up with your needle at the beginning of the line. Do not go through the fabric, just slip the needle under each back stitch as you move along the line, and then go back through the fabric once you reach the end of the line. So, let's see, am I going to use this color for anything else? Nope, don't use it there. Nope, don't use it there. That fly stitch is in black. All right. So I'm just going to show you, again, we're just going to sort of run this through so we can grab a different color. And I'm just sort of splitting my strands and running it through. And then I'm just going to trim this close. There we go. So there's our back stitch portion. And I'm going to park my needle, save my thread, because I do want this later. And I'm going to go grab, I thought I had a little dab of that green sitting out. I don't see it. I'll just grab more. I'm gonna go in and get 2 strands of our dark green, and remember we do that 1 strand at a time. 1 and 2. There we go. Put the rest of the floss away. Hold them together. And then again, I always like to take a little beeswax. I'm gonna do my front end first. And it doesn't take much. I mean, I've been stitching on this batch for like 3 months. I've probably done 2 or 3 samplers at least on this. You can see I've used some, but you know, it doesn't take much beeswax, just this little teeny dab of beeswax to get started. And I'm just gonna go ahead and tidy those ends again because I'd like them to be the same length. And then see if we can wiggle the beeswax. They do make needle threaders, by the way. I've just always kind of been I don't know. I just have never used them. They do work, and they do work well, and they are pretty fabulous. It's just I don't know. I never managed to keep one in my kit. I should probably find one. Maybe I just need a prettier one. Could be my problem. I do like pretty things. All right, now this time I am not going to do that waist knot because I already have a line of stitching here. So I'm just going to take my thread and I'm just going to run it through my stitching a couple of times because I know that I'm going to be running this through mostly the top of my fabric, so it doesn't matter. All right, and now I'm going to start at the very, very end, right here in B, and I want to come up back through that same hole. Okay, here we go. We're gonna whip it. So all you do to whip it is you just run your needle underneath the line of back stitches. And it's just once. I suppose you could do 2 or 3 times if you are feeling sassy. Give it a little different look. I'm sure it has another name. And boom! Whipped back stitch, just like that. Bring it back down here to G. And there! That was it. That was the whole thing. That was whipped back stitch. Oh, it was so hard, wasn't it? Oh, yeah. And I'm trying to pull a little bit on this because this is my thread end and oh, it's trying to pop out. Well, you know what we're gonna do is we'll just secure our end just like this. Just back through there. There we go. And just for fun, run this the opposite direction once. Help lock it down. There we go. Uh-oh, no, don't want my tail threads under there. Ta-da! There we go. Alright, we're gonna ignore this now. This is done. This is done. There we go. And that is our pretty whipped back stitch. Yay, whipped back stitch. See, it wasn't scary. It was easy. It was totally easy. Okay, so put my green away, and then let's come up to the fly stitch. Now to do the fly stitch and the long and short stitch, we have to move our hoop. So I'm going to release my hoop, and usually I keep this on the left side, but I'm going to flip that around to the right side because working with you guys, it just seems like I always have that on the wrong side. Usually I use my, so I'm not exactly ambidextrous, I'm very much a right-handed person, but I craft so much that I tend to use my left a lot when I'm crafting. So a lot of times I use my left hand when I am tightening my hoop, and I'll keep this up and to the left, but for the purposes of these videos, I need to keep this down and to the right. Okay, and we're going for, again, that drum tight. Not quite tight enough. Almost. Tighten this a little more, help hold it in place. That sounds pretty good. I want a little bit of give, but not too much. Okay, I'm gonna throw my needle minder back on right here. All right, let's do fly stitch. Fly stitch is fun. And might as well, I think I've got a, yep, 2-strand piece of black that's already here. It's already been waxed and it's ready to go. So I might need to trim that again though. There. So fly stitch is fun, super simple. Basically you sort of make like a loop with your thread and then you tack it down. So, I mean, there's nothing like super crazy about this one. I'm gonna go ahead and use that waist knot again and just plop it in, sort of up in here, out of the way. There we go. All right, so fly stitch, if you're following along and you need more instruction, it's on page 3 in the PDF. But essentially you're going to come up at A, here I should do it down here. Up at A. Oh, and I think I should have stitched this. Ha! I wasn't paying any attention, was I? Like A, B, C, D. Oh no, I'm supposed to stitch this. Ha! That was funny. I'm just gonna ignore that. I'll go back and stitch this later. I'll just have 2 samples. Okay, where am I? Up at A, down at B. And this time, you don't pull your thread all the way through yet, because what you want to do is you want to leave this a little bit of a loop and then pick your C and you make a teensy weensy little stitch at C. And you kind of pull this, not too tight, but sort of down, and then D, you just lock it down. That was it. That was the whole thing. That's a fly stitch. So up at A, make your loop, down at B, and then up at C. Hopefully you can see. Good. And then tighten this down. Uh-oh. See, there's one of those stragglers. Those little white threads that don't need to be in here, that are interfering. If you have a lot of trouble with this, one of the best things that you can do is you can tape the edges of your embroidery, or you can just go along and you can trim them all off. Okay, and then sort of gently pull it down. You don't want it too tight. Uh-oh, I didn't make this one tight enough. And I can see I need to tighten that. And then there. Okay, there we go. That's another problem if you aren't paying attention. Fly stitch, fly stitch, fly stitch. Okay, here's another one. We're going to go A, B, sort of leave this loop, come up at C, very gently pull it down, and then tack it down at D. And there is fly stitch. Super simple, super fun, super cute. Huh, super cute. Anyway, so there we are. There's our little fly stitch. So the last one that we need to talk about is long and short stitch. Long and short stitch is super simple because you really are just making stitches. But the key to this is that you make some long stitches and some short stitches, and you fill in with a different color usually as you go down. And so you can see where she has this sort of sectioned off into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections of color. And for her sampler, what she did, yes, the split stitch is very slow going. For the sampler, what she did is she's got the dark orange and then some medium orange and then the light orange and then the medium orange and then the dark orange, so that you have this gradation of color, which is what she uses here in the pumpkin. So it's dark, medium, light, medium, dark, right? And it gives it beautiful texture in terms of the coloring. It's not impossible, because there's people that do it all the time. One of the best things that I have learned is that your long stitches need to be about twice as long as your short stitches-ish. And not to overthink yourself, because it does fluff out a little bit when you are working it. But let's get started on some long and short stitch. And let me just secure this. So I'm actually going to run this through and knot it to tie it off, because there's nothing else up here to hold it in place. So there's that fly stitch. I'll knot it off. All right. I'm getting very thirsty. It's about 80 here again today, but my air is much cleaner than Fortina and company. And Kathy, Brooke, how is it where you guys are? I know, Kathy, you're in Oregon. Brooke, you're in Oregon too, aren't you? It's probably not very nice. So what I'm doing, I'm just pulling out my dark orange, my medium orange, and my light orange so that I can see them. We are not going to get to all three of these colors. And I'm going to put away that little dab of black. Whoops, sorry. Knocked it over. Put away that little dab of black too. All right. So long and short stitch looks best. Single strands again. I know you guys are gonna kill me, right? I'm like, yay, do embroidery, it's so fun. Oh wait, we're only working with one strand at a time. But it looks so pretty. It looks so pretty. So, you know, I'm terribly sorry. So I'm gonna go ahead and prep my single strand here. Just like that. Touch of beeswax and thread my needle. And again, I don't bring my thread to my needle, I bring my needle to my thread. And usually, see that one was perfect, perfect. You've had a headache from the smoke? Ugh, so sorry, Kathy. That's, it's like really, really unpleasant. It's super unpleasant. I mean, everything that I have seen, Washington, Oregon, California, all the way down, the smoke is really, really terrible. Like, really terrible. And the air quality is really, really bad. Okay, so I'm gonna make my little waist knot, and I'm just gonna throw it in kind of over here. And I'm going to start then my long and short, and I'm really not kidding, this long and short stitch thing. It's honestly like you make these long stitches. So here's a long one kind of following her lines. And then the thing with the long and short stitches is that you can come back and forth, but it makes the back of your work look not as tidy. So if you can kind of work side to side, no, it probably makes no sense. But let me do a few here. So I'm just following her guidelines at the moment. And then I'm going to go down and grab this one. I'm just following her guidelines to get started. Because as she says, I think this is page 4, so it might be page 3. Page 3. The idea of this is that you want to begin so that you have some long and short stitches that sort of define the outline of your shape up at the top. And they call this needle painting a lot of times. If you want to look up needle painting, my gosh, people do some gorgeous needle painting. You have friends who are in the level 3 evacuations. Oh, but none of them lost their homes. Wow, that's crazy. I mean, to be in a level 3 evacuation and then to not lose your home, that's like a really fortunate thing. I can't even imagine the scope right now. I keep looking at the maps and I see all the fires, and it's not registering really. Okay, so I've done a little bit here, and you can see with my needle painting, a lot of times what I like to do is sort of go back and forth, so I end up with these short straight stitches on the back. You can needle paint where you are essentially making your back stitches, and actually now I can't remember if I'm supposed to, okay, so go over. It'll look pretty much the same on the front as it does on the back. And that's a completely valid way to do it. There's nothing wrong with that. I just, I don't know, I just tend to do it this way. And maybe I'm wrong. Perhaps someone would like to correct me. I don't mind being wrong. Just because I've done it one way doesn't mean there isn't a better way. Looks like we'll use the fly stitch for the spider webs. Yeah. So what I always do is I go to the little guide, which is on page 5, and it says for the spider web on the vertical line to use back stitch, and for the horizontal curve to use fly stitches. So you fly stitch here, you make big fat wides. This one was a wide one right here. You would use those wide fly stitches right here on the inner curves to make the inner webbing. Or actually it's kind of the warp, because these would be the weft. Ha! We're gonna warp with fly stitch. That's entertaining. Small town of Detroit. Yeah, you know, I drove through Detroit. And all these little towns, these are little places where I think a lot of us drove through. Maybe we stopped a few times. They weren't big towns. You know, they weren't big towns. So some people lived there, but it wasn't a ton of people living there. But, you know, gone, just gone. And I've seen a few of those photos where it was like a line of houses and then just nothing. It's crazy. It's just crazy. All right, so where are we? So now that I followed her guide, you can kind of see that I've got these long and short stitches that have started to fill in the upper edge. And now it kind of gets fun because you're going to freehand it, and you want to sort of put another line of long and short stitches in there. And so I'm going to do a really long one here in between these two stitches, and then sort of a long one here between these two stitches. And all I'm trying to do is build out that color so that when I go back in with my next color, it will start to fill in those gaps a little bit in between here. And these are longer stitches because this is a sampler. These are longer stitches than I would usually do for a practice. I don't know, I tend to do my long and short stitches kind of small, just for a little better needle painting effect. You should look up needle painting. You should totally look up needle painting. It is, oh, amazing. Trish Burr, she has this like bird thing. And of course I'm on all these Facebook groups with all of these embroidery people who are so much better than I am. But I do it because I enjoy it, not because I'm necessarily really good at it, right? So I just do it because it makes me happy. But I love looking at their work. Actually, let's make this one a little bit longer there. So there we've got some long and short stitches, and I'm actually going to take a little tiny stitch over here, just a little itty bitty guy right here. bring him down this side. So once you have this filled in a little more, and I can see, okay, maybe I'd like to drop one in here that sort of splits this a little bit. What you want to do though is leave enough space that you can bring a second color in. That would be your medium orange, and sort of start filling in all of these gaps with a medium orange. And I can tell that I have made a little knot back here. This happens occasionally. Sometimes it's just a loop and you can smooth it out, and I got lucky. Sometimes you might need to take your needle and dig into the knot a little more. All right, and stitch. And I'm trying to get just enough done. That one needs to be a little longer. There we go. That I can introduce the second color to show you what I'm talking about. She does have really good graphics though, in her PDFs. Okay. Go between these two stitches. I really do like the long and short stitch, and I like needle painting, and I think it's fun. But, yeah. And see, Kathy, I totally agree. I mean, I love looking at it. I don't know that I want to spend my time necessarily, you know, on 300 hours of making a bird look lifelike. I'm so glad that there are other people that do that, so that I can look at it and admire how pretty it is. But it's sort of like my friend Linda loves to make these very intricate pieced English paper pieced batik quilts, and it's gorgeous to look at, but oof, I have no desire to do that. I'm like, yay, let's go crank out a really easy t-shirt for Ina. It took me 30 minutes, hot diggity. You know. So anyway, so here's what my long and short stitch is starting to look like. You can see that I've got, I started it like right here, Kathy. I started my long and short stitch right here on the outside, and I followed her little guidelines. You can kind of pick anywhere so long as it's like, and I like to work from left to right. I know I'm so weird instead of right to left, but I like to work left to right, back towards me, and then right to left, and then just kind of make my way back and forth across the piece. And so I started over here because that's what's comfortable to me. That was part of why I was having trouble with my buttonholes, was because I like to work counterclockwise. I don't know, it's so weird. You get used to doing something one way, and then when you're challenged, it's hard to do it the opposite direction. But that's how I like to work, is I always start from the left side and work my way back to the right, and then right to left, and then left to right, and I work back and forth. So, yeah, see that paper piecing, man? That's so not for me. I'm glad that Linda does it, and I'm so glad that I get to see what she makes, but it is just not my thing. And yet, you know, I'll spend hundreds of hours on a lace shawl. So it's to each their own, and you just have to find what makes you happy. Okay, so I think, I mean, if I was really doing this just for me, I would probably have made my stitches a little shorter, and I would probably have done a third layer of these stitches. But because I want to show you how to put in the next color, and see, I don't have nearly as much thread on the back. And again, this is just the way that I do it, and it may not be right, so take it with a grain of salt. I'm showing you my way. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best way. And I'm just going to tie that. Actually, I'm going to do that one more time. Just going to run it under there 3 times. If I can grab my needle again. There we go. Need a little tension. 3 times. And oops, see in there I popped my single knot through from the outside. But that's okay. That waist knot's not going to be a problem. So I'm just going to do this. and I am going to trim it off, and I'm going to grab another color. And the reason that I'm doing that, instead of trying to come in down here and finish off these two colors at the same time, because you know it is the same color, you start and end with the same color. I feel better when I have more control, and for me, more control means that as I go in, that I just work my way down one color at a time. And it's not that many knots in your work anyhow, so. Oh, your mom's a lefty? Tina's a lefty. She's not on here. If she was on here, maybe she'd tell us how she likes to work, if she does left to right or right to left. I don't know. You know, when you are crafty, when you're really crafty and you start young, you tend to use both hands a lot more, I feel, than someone who doesn't learn crafting until later in life, or who never learns to craft and never learns to use both of their hands sort of in tandem. And, you know, I mean, I crochet, I knit, I tat, and I use both of my hands because, you know, that's what's comfortable. I like to be efficient. I'm kind of an efficient person when it comes to my knitting, my tatting, my whatever. So, you know, I swatch because I want to be efficient and I want my knitting to turn out nicely. So, all right, we're gonna start again, and this time get into the back of the hoop, and I'm going to make sort of a knot. Oops, I did that too far out. Hang on, one more time. There we go. There, keep those together. All right, now we can come in. And now when we are laying our stitches in, we can lay in our long and short stitches in the second color. And now you can start to see, I'm gonna do a really long stitch in there so I can get some color up in there. Now you can start to see how this needle painting is done and how you use these long and short stitches together. And there really is no like wrong way, as far as I know, to do these. Ouch. Don't poke yourself. That is the wrong way. That's definitely the wrong way when you poke yourself. And again, there's probably more efficient ways to do the long and short stitch. I'm just kind of showing you guys a couple of quick stitchy techniques. Uh-oh, there we go. I do try to make sure that I'm not splitting my stitches, because this is not a split stitch technique. This is the long and the short stitch. There we go, bringing some new color in. You can really start to see how it's painted and looks so nice. Throw another little short stitch in there. And maybe a long one, dip down in a little more. Just like this, up and down, back and forth. Excuse me. I need to get something to drink. So that right there, that is the idea. And you keep working back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, so that you bring this color down. You'll use the lightest color in here, medium, and then dark again. And that needle painting technique, once it fills in and you have all your little stitches together, starts to look pretty nice. Starts to look pretty nice. And you can see on her little sample here, you can see the little stitches. You can see where they are. And her stitches are smaller than mine. but because I'm practicing and showing you how to do it, mine are longer. And you'll use that here on the pumpkin. So that needle painting long and short technique. But super cute little pattern. Oh, okay, so that was fun. Let me flip this around. So Wednesday, we're probably just gonna chit chat and I'm going to stitch with you and maybe I'll knit with you. I don't know yet. And I'll keep working on this, and then eventually you'll get to see a photo of it when it's all done, and I'll put that up on Black Sheep on our Instagram and our Facebook page, and you know, it'll be all kinds of fun. So until Wednesday, make sure that you are wearing your mask and being safe when you go outside, especially if you're in Oregon where everything's on fire. Make sure that you keep all your little pieces of thread together so that you don't lose them. Although if you do lose them, she does have the guide so you can buy the matching color in DMC, so that's nice. What else do I need to tell you? Oh, stay sane, take care of your mental health, keep crafting. Yeah, just do the best you can in this world that we're living in. And take care of yourself. I mean, really, if you're out there on that West Coast, please, please take care of yourself. The air quality is so bad right now. Everything that I've seen from all of my friends out there, I mean, the air quality is so bad. So please take care of yourself. If you're inside and you're bored, don't forget that you can go back and re-watch some of our fun videos here from Black Sheep, either on the Facebook page. Make sure that you are hitting like for the Facebook page so you get notifications when we go live, and if you are on YouTube, make sure that you hit subscribe on YouTube so that you see our videos on YouTube, and don't forget to go shop at blacksheepfiberemporium.com. We have great stuff in the clearance section. Go make your wish list because we are going to have a big clearance event at the end of the month. It's coming very soon. And it's going to be epic. It's going to be epic because we need to make some room and we want to bring in some fun new stuff. So, until next time, please take care of yourself, and I'll see you Wednesday.